Hi, I'm Phil from Digital DJ Tips, and today we are reviewing the Mixars Duo Serato mixer. This is a 2-channel, relatively simple mixer designed to plug and play with Serato with record decks. It's made for scratch DJs. It's a scratch-enabled mixer. Any scratch DJ looking at this is going to feel instantly at home. There's a lot of space around the crossfader. As you're going to see, there's an awful lot of controls to help scratch DJs optimize the way that they work. And it looks like both looks like scratch DJ mixes of old, before they had the extra digital bits around the outside. And also it looks like the Tractor Control Z2 or Z2, which is the Tractor version roughly of this kind of mixer. So it is kind of entry level. It's expensive, but nowhere near as expensive as equivalent solutions on the market right now. It is 2-channel for scratch DJs, and it's plug and play. They're the main things about this mixer. But that said, let's look at it in a bit more depth at what's on it, and I'll give you some views on it, having used it for a while as well afterwards. So we're going to start on the top panel of the mixer. So here are our 2 channels. They're quite loose. They haven't got the kind of like resistance that you feel on a lot of line faders. There are 2 analog filters. That means that anything you have plugged in here, as well as the Serato USB functions, can still use the filters, so your record decks or CDs or whatever. There are low, mid and high EQs and a trim at the top. There are separate VU meters for each channel for getting your trims right or your gains right, and headphones for each channel here. Let's look at the non-Serato features before we move on to the ones which are built into this for the software. So we've got a booth output and a master output here. That's about it for those features. On the crossfader, of course, it's a inner fader, but it will be a Pro X fader in later batches of this mixer. So there is a auxiliary input volume here. And a tone for the auxiliary input. I'll show you where you plug your auxiliary stuff in a minute. So let's have a look at the Serato controls. This is plug and play with Serato. It has a built-in audio interface, so you can plug your record decks into here, plug your laptop into the back of here, and that's it. It's going to work with Serato. That's one of its big selling points. It comes with Serato timecode vinyl. It comes with a full version of the software. It's designed to be simple to use. So let's look at what features are here for Serato. Well, we've got effects for both sides. There's an effects 1 and 2 here with an on and off for the effects. These are only controlling the wet and dry for those effects, nothing else. So if you're set to Serato single effect mode, that's going to control the wet and dry. Everything else you're going to have to do on the screen. If you're set to combi effects, where you've got 3 effects per engine, it's only going to control the first one. And you can select which effect you are using by holding down the shift button and pressing the effects on or off button, and that will just cycle through the effects that you've got selected. So quite rudimentary, but actually for most DJs I think that's going to be fine. Certainly is for me. So you also have the beats here, which decides what fraction or multiple of the currently synced beat the effects LFO loops through. So if you've got that kind of effect selected, like an echo, that's gonna work for that. So that's how the effects bit works. You have a loop encoder. This is again very similar to the Tractor Control Z2, which again the encoding, the moving it left and right will double or halve the number of beats that your loop is. But also by pressing shift, you've got a loop roll. So that's kind of like loop plus slip. Which is worth pointing out because there is no slip button on here. On the Tractor Control Z2, this button here turns slip mode on and off, where the track continues playing underneath as you're scratching or whatever. On this, you don't have that. So you'd have to try and find a way of hacking that into the MIDI mapping. It is fully MIDI enabled, by the way, so you can remap anything. Instead, this has got a bank button here. Now these are 4 cues, but they're also 4 samples. You can use this button here to switch between cues and samples for all at once. So these control either cues or samples. They're color coded to match the colors on your Serato screen, but also the bank button will switch from 1, 2, 3, 4 to 5, 6, 7, 8 down here. So other Serato controls here, well, there's a sample volume button here for Serato, and the big area I've yet to tell you about is the library area. So here we have a library selector where you can press down on it in order to switch to different playlists or folders. There's also a load button per side. There's also a sync button per side here as well, and you can turn sync off by pressing shift and tapping sync there. Oh, and before I go any further, to turn Serato on, there are little selectors at the top. You can also turn on the phono and line. So what they've done here is build in enough stuff so you don't need an extra controller for Serato, which is really nice because that is again part of the plug and play desirability of this. You know, you just plug in and you're not either using your laptop and reaching there to do these things or having to plug in an extra controller as well. So let's go and have a look around the back of the mixer. So we have the power on off and the kettle lead, the transformer's built into this, so there's no external transformer, which is preferable. Balanced outputs are XLR, there's balanced booth outputs as TRS as well. You also get a duplicate unbalanced RCA output. The record output's a little bit strange in that it is controlled by the master volume, just like the master outputs are, which is unusual. Normally that bypasses the master volume, so if you're turning your club up, you don't turn your recording up. But I'd rather have seen that the normal way of doing that. So over to the inputs, we have inputs for channels 1 and 2 here. They've got a line phono input and also a straight line input. The line phono is switchable and there are earth poles as well for you to earth your decks if you're using Technics that still have the earth lead. There's the standard USB for PC, and very nice is to have 2 USBs here as well, so this is effectively acting as a USB hub if you're plugging extra gear in. Now around the front we've got some pretty advanced stuff. I'll do the run-of-the-mill stuff first. There's a combi mic here, there's a mic aux or off toggle there, and there's where your auxiliary plugs in. Nice to see that at the front because it's easy to access them around the back if you're plugging an iPhone or something. But here are the scratch, here's the scratch stuff. So we've got a curve for both channel 1 and channel 2 over here, and for the crossfader. There's a crossfader cut-in, which is awesome. It just stops the crossfader doing anything either for a reasonable amount of movement or just a tiny amount before it all starts. That's something that we haven't seen on any other mixer. They all have reverse switches, both the upfaders and the crossfader, which is awesome. Also here we've got a split cue, something that a lot of DJs like, and a 1/4 and 1/8 inch headphone sockets. Now, in use, I found the mixer to be awesome. The sound quality is excellent, as you'd expect from a 2496 sound card. It's very simple and clean to use. You know, it's not over cluttered. It's great to have all the Serato stuff here because you're very rarely touching your laptop, which is awesome. I don't think I touched it once, actually. I'm just thinking about it. You'd have to touch your laptop to switch different views. So if you want to switch on the effects so you can see what you're doing, you touch your laptop to do that. But that's kind of like set and forget. Once you're set up how you want to be set up, that's kind of it. Because it's only 2-channel, it also keeps things simple. You haven't got channels 3 and 4 in Serato to worry about either. Because it's got all the scratch controls on it, not that that's something that I personally use, I'm not a scratch DJ, but I work with Steve Canuetto, our scratch DJ, on assessing those. He was very impressed, and it's got stuff on there, as we talked about, that you can't see on any other mixer, so that's pretty awesome. Basically, if you've looked at the Traktor Control Z2 for Traktor and wished that you could have that for Serato, it's a no-brainer. Head in there. Maybe you're one of those people who's bought the Traktor Control Z2 and used something like a Denon DS1 in order to add Serato functionality to that. Makes it less elegant. This is a much better solution. It's also a lot cheaper than equivalent mixers from Pioneer or Rain, albeit their nearest mixers are more capable. I guess the other way to go would be to buy a much cheaper hardware mixer that's not got any software or audio interface functionality at all on it, and then add on a sound card, an SL2 or a DS1. But again, you're losing all this functionality. You'd have to buy yet another box to control that. So really, it's hit a real market niche, which is plug and play, simple 2-channel scratch mixer, really well done for Serato. And if that's what you're looking for, I highly recommend it. It's the Mixars Duo for Serato. I've written all this up in a full review over on digitaldjtips.com. There's a link below me to get to that. If you've enjoyed this review, please subscribe to the channel. And if you want to get more from us, please click the subscribe link to us, which again is below me, and we'll keep in touch with you. I'm Phil Morse for Digital DJ Tips. Thank you very much for watching.